What if I told you that the biggest lie you've ever been taught about power is the idea that you must choose between being good or being dangerous? That you either sit quietly in your moral purity while the world walks over you, or you pick up the knife and lose your soul in the process. That false choice has kept millions of capable men small, confused, and divided inside themselves. And if you don't understand this in the next few minutes, you will keep oscillating between being exploited and feeling guilty for finally standing up for yourself. On one side, you're handed stoicism. Endure, accept, control your reactions, retreat into the fortress of your own mind. On the other side, you hear the whisper of Niccolo Machiavelli, reminding you that the world is not a monastery. It's a battlefield. And if you're not willing to hold the blade, eventually you'll be the one bleeding. Most men spend their entire lives torn between these two identities. They try to be noble and get used. They try to be ruthless and feel ashamed. They swing between saint and tyrant, mastering neither. Here's the truth neither camp wants to admit. Stoicism without power becomes quiet submission. It turns into a sedative for the conquered. But Machiavellianism without inner control, that's self-destruction. It's a fire that eventually burns the one who lit it. What I'm going to show you in this video is that these are not enemies. They are two halves of the same weapon. And the most powerful figures in history understood how to hold both. By the end of this, you won't be choosing between peace and power. You'll understand the synthesis, the internal design that lets a man move through the world with the precision of a prince, while sleeping at night with the calm of a sage. And if you're serious about building that kind of control, subscribe now, because everything on this channel is built for men who refuse to stay naive. Most people won't watch past 4 minutes. If you do, you're already different. First, we need to strip away the comforting myths. Look at the world as it is, not as you wish it to be. Walk into a corporate boardroom, a political arena, or a high-stakes negotiation carrying only quotes from Marcus Aurelius, and you're bringing a shield to a gunfight. There's a reason Machiavelli is criticized publicly but studied privately. The Prince wasn't written as philosophy for the masses. It was a strategic blueprint, a job application for power, a manual on how to take a state and hold it against enemies inside and out. People oversimplify Machiavelli into the ends justify the means. That's shallow. His real message was this: morality is easier when the walls aren't collapsing. When survival is on the line, kindness without strength becomes a liability. A leader who insists on being good in a world filled with predators will eventually be destroyed. That's not pessimism. That's structural reality. Look at Cesare Borgia. Machiavelli didn't invent theory in isolation. He observed it in motion. Borgia conquered Romagna, but the region was chaos, crime, feuds, instability. If he had entered preaching virtue and patience, he would have been eliminated quickly. Instead, he appointed Ramiro de Orco, brutal, efficient, feared, gave him full authority to restore order, and Ramiro did it through terror, executions, public punishment, ruthless enforcement. The region stabilized, the streets became safe. But the people began to hate Ramiro, and that hatred started to bleed toward Borgia. A purely stoic man might ask, how do I endure their resentment? A strategic mind asks, how do I redirect it? One morning, the citizens woke up to a spectacle. Ramiro de Orco was found cut in half in the town square, displayed beside a bloody blade. Borgia removed the instrument of cruelty and absorbed the credit for stability. The message was surgical. Order came from me. The brutality died with him. Machiavelli wrote that the people were both satisfied and stunned. This is the uncomfortable truth about power. It often requires scapegoats. It sometimes requires theater. If you cling to moral purity without understanding strategy, you stay governed instead of governing. But here's where modern so-called Machiavellians misunderstand everything. They think being Ramiro is the goal. They confuse cruelty with power. It isn't. Ramiro was a tool, disposable, emotional in his violence. He lacked internal control, and so he became expendable. The real player was the one observing from above, Borgia. But ask yourself something deeper. How does a man order that execution and then calmly eat breakfast? How does the mind survive ambition without fracturing? This is where Machiavelli alone becomes unstable, and this is where Stoicism quietly becomes necessary. Modern Stoicism has been watered down into productivity advice, cold showers, journaling. Accept what you can't control. Used incorrectly, it becomes a coping mechanism for powerlessness. Your boss humiliates you. It is what it is. The economy wipes your savings. The obstacle is the way. Taken this way, Stoicism trains submission. It creates compliant employees, not formidable men. But the original Stoics weren't passive. Seneca, advisor to Emperor Nero, was one of the wealthiest men in Rome. He wrote about detachment from wealth while operating within power structures. Hypocrite or strategist? Philosophy anchored his mind, but he still built sails for his ship. When Nero eventually turned on him and ordered his death, Seneca didn't beg, didn't plot revenge. He opened his veins calmly, dictating thoughts as he died. He maintained inner sovereignty. He lost politically, but he didn't lose himself. Here's the core tension. Machiavellianism is outward-focused. Perception, leverage, outcomes. Stoicism is inward-focused. Reaction, judgment, tranquility. Taken alone, each collapses. Pure Machiavellian thinking breeds paranoia. Every handshake feels like a trap. You save your opposition but destroy your peace. Pure Stoicism can make you inert. You preserve your conscience while losing influence. History is full of dead Stoics and overthrown Machiavellians. But there's a third type, the rare ones who saw these philosophies not as identities, but as tools, software, systems to run intentionally. Look at Marcus Aurelius. We remember him as the gentle philosopher emperor, but he ruled during wars, rebellions, plague. He commanded legions on muddy frontiers. He ordered executions, suppressed uprisings, played the brutal game of empire. Meditations was not a book written for applause. It was psychological armor. Marcus operated strategically in public and disciplined his mind in private. He understood something profound. To act ruthlessly when necessary, you must remove emotion from the equation. Cruelty is emotional. Ruthlessness is calculated. Ramiro was cruel. Borgia was strategic. Marcus Aurelius used Stoicism to sterilize emotion from decision-making. When he crushed an enemy, it wasn't hatred, it was duty. He depersonalized force. This is the version of Stoicism most self-help channels won't explain. It doesn't just help you endure suffering. It helps you apply necessary pressure without collapsing internally. It lets you fire an incompetent employee without guilt consuming you. End a toxic relationship without dramatic emotional chaos. Negotiate assertively without shame. You use Machiavelli to read the room. to understand power dynamics, to detect hidden incentives. You use Stoicism to keep your pulse steady while you act. That is the synthesis. But this is only the foundation. In the next part, we're going to break down the exact mechanics, reputation, emotional asymmetry, and how to move through modern social hierarchies without becoming either a victim or a villain. If you're still here, comment balance below. I want to see who's actually thinking, and share this with someone who's stuck choosing between being nice and being powerful. Because what comes next is where this becomes dangerous. Now let's go deeper, because theory is useless if you can't apply it when pressure hits your chest and your ego starts reacting. The synthesis only works if you understand the mechanics behind it. Power is not loud. It is structured. It is layered. And most men lose because they reveal too much, feel too much, and react too quickly. The first mechanical principle of the Stoic strategist is asymmetry. In every interaction, there is an invisible exchange happening. Information, emotion, intent. The person who exposes the most loses leverage. Most people have a compulsive need to be understood. They over-explain. They justify themselves. They show their anger to prove seriousness. They show their hurt to prove innocence. They leak information constantly, and they think honesty equals strength. It doesn't. Machiavelli understood that perception is currency. Stoicism understood that emotion is internal. Combine them and you get containment. You feel everything, but you display almost nothing unless it serves a purpose. When you are angry, your voice stays level. When you're excited, your breathing stays slow. When you're insulted, your posture doesn't change. This is not repression. Repression is denial. This is control. When people cannot read you, they project onto you. And projection is powerful. An unreadable man becomes intimidating without trying. Others fill the silence with their own insecurity. That is asymmetry. You observe more than you reveal. You gather data while giving very little away. You allow others to underestimate you because underestimation is strategic camouflage. Second principle, premeditation of betrayal. The ancient Stoics practiced premeditatio malorum, imagining worst-case scenarios so they would not be emotionally shaken when adversity arrived. But the Stoic strategist takes this further. You do not only imagine bad luck, you imagine disloyalty. You assume incentives will override loyalty at some point, not because you are cynical, but because you understand human nature is driven by self-interest. This does not make you bitter. It makes you prepared. If you assume loyalty is permanent, you will be emotionally destroyed when it fractures. If you assume incentives eventually shift, you build safeguards, contracts, documentation, diversified alliances, exit strategies. That way, if betrayal comes, you are not shocked. You are activated calmly. You don't scream, "How could you?" You think, "I calculated this probability." That mental shift is everything. Emotionally, you remain stable. Strategically, you respond immediately. Most people collapse in the moment of betrayal because they trusted blindly. You trusted strategically. Third principle, aggressive acceptance. Amor fati is often translated as love your fate. But loving fate does not mean passive acceptance. It means immediate adaptation. When something collapses, job lost, reputation attacked, partnership dissolved, you do not freeze in self-pity. You instantly ask one question: how can this be used? This is where Stoicism fuels Machiavellian adaptability. You lose your job. Instead of spiraling, you realize you were stagnant. Now urgency is injected into your life. You are criticized publicly. Good. Now expectations are shattered, and you can move unpredictably. You treat chaos as raw material. The average person resists reality. The Stoic strategist absorbs it and redirects it. Let's bring this into real-world application. Imagine corporate politics. You are in a competitive environment. A colleague, we'll call him Daniel, smiles at you, eats lunch with you, but subtly undermines you in meetings. He rephrases your ideas as his own, leaves you off email threads, plants small doubts about your competence. Most people react emotionally. They confront him impulsively. He denies everything. Now you look unstable. The purely Stoic man ignores it. I'll just focus on my work. Result? Daniel climbs while you stay stagnant. The purely Machiavellian reaction would be aggressive sabotage, rumors, retaliation, risky exposure. That might win short-term, but it can easily destroy you if miscalculated. The synthesis approach is controlled patience. First, Stoic phase. You regulate your anger. You refuse to personalize it. This is not about friendship. It is about status competition. Once emotion is neutralized, strategy becomes clear. Second, strategic phase. You increase warmth toward Daniel. Compliment him publicly. Lower his guard. Meanwhile, you document everything. Quietly build alliances. Ensure key stakeholders associate you directly with deliverables. You create visibility without confrontation. Then you wait. Impatient men expose themselves. Strategic men let others overextend. When Daniel eventually takes credit for something unstable or overreaches into responsibility he cannot handle, you don't attack. You allow gravity to function. And when correction happens, you remain calm, professional, slightly concerned. Never vindictive. You eliminated the threat without ever appearing aggressive. Now let's talk about relationships, because power dynamics do not disappear when romance begins. In every relationship there is leverage. The person who is emotionally dependent holds less power. Pure manipulation tactics, jealousy games, artificial scarcity destroy long-term trust. Pure detachment can feel cold and indifferent. The synthesis is sovereignty. You care. You invest. You are present. But you never anchor your identity to another person. Your happiness is internally generated. You do not cling. You do not beg. You do not fear abandonment. That emotional independence creates magnetic gravity. Why? Because most people operate from fear of loss. When you are not operating from fear, you are stable. Stability is rare, and rare is attractive. You do not control your partner. You control yourself. That self-command shifts the entire dynamic without manipulation. Now here is the cost of this path. When you begin to see incentives clearly, when you read social hierarchies instinctively, when you recognize projection and insecurity instantly, you will feel separate. You will walk into rooms and see structure instead of surface. You will recognize when someone is posturing, when someone is compensating, when someone is calculating. It can feel isolating. You will notice friends complaining about problems created by their own impulses. You will see political leaders using language that mirrors the prince, almost word for word. And part of you may become disillusioned. That is the danger. When strategy becomes visible everywhere, cynicism creeps in. This is why Stoicism must anchor the system. Without internal philosophy, strategic awareness turns into nihilism. You start seeing everyone as manipulators. You detach too far. You become cold. Stoicism reminds you of purpose. You are not mastering strategy to dominate for ego. You are mastering it to operate responsibly in a competitive world. If capable men refuse to understand power, less ethical men will fill the vacuum. But there is another layer we need to address. Reputation. Machiavelli asked whether it is better to be loved or feared. He concluded that ideally both, but if forced, fear is more reliable because love depends on obligation, and obligation breaks under self-interest. A naive interpretation would push you toward intimidation. That is a mistake. Reputation is architecture. It must be designed intentionally. A pure Stoic might say, "I don't care what others think." That works only if you live alone in the woods. In society, perception determines access to opportunity, partnership, protection. You cannot ignore it, but you also cannot be enslaved by it. So you curate your image deliberately. You project competence, calm authority, a slight edge of unpredictability. You allow people to respect you, maybe even fear disappointing you. But internally, you detach from the applause and from the criticism. Your self-worth is not sourced from their reaction. This dual awareness makes you extremely difficult to manipulate. Flattery does not intoxicate you. Insults do not destabilize you. You are responsive, not reactive. And in the modern digital world, where every statement can be amplified, clipped, weaponized, this becomes even more critical. The purely Machiavellian approach becomes shape-shifting to please the crowd. The purely Stoic approach risks social exile by ignoring perception entirely. The synthesis is adaptive consistency. You understand the crowd's psychology without surrendering your center. You speak strategically, but you do not lie to yourself. You maneuver without losing identity. Now here is where most men fail. They glue their ego to their public mask. When the mask cracks, reputation damaged, status lowered, their internal world collapses. The Stoic strategist treats persona as an asset, not identity, like a business entity, managed, optimized, but separate from the core self. This separation is psychological armor, and yet there is still a deeper layer. Because once you begin mastering emotional containment, strategic perception, and adaptive reputation, you will encounter something more dangerous than betrayal. You will encounter power over outcomes. When your reactions stop controlling you, and you begin influencing environments consistently, the temptation of superiority creeps in. That is where men who mastered strategy historically fell. Hubris. In the next part, we are going to address the final danger, the internal corruption that comes when control becomes intoxicating. We will talk about shadow integration, about preventing your strategic mind from consuming your humanity, and about how to hold power without becoming the very thing you once feared. If you're still here, you're not watching casually anymore. Comment control below so I know you're tracking, and share this with someone who needs strength without losing conscience. Now we step into the part most people avoid. Because it's easy to talk about strategy. It's easy to talk about emotional control. It's even easy to talk about power in theory. What's difficult is confronting what happens inside you when you actually start gaining it. Once you begin operating as the synthesis, calm internally, strategic externally, something shifts. You stop reacting impulsively. You stop chasing validation. You start seeing patterns before they unfold. And when that happens consistently, you feel a subtle high, a quiet superiority. You walk into rooms already mapping the dynamics. You predict outcomes. You influence conversations without raising your voice. And this is where men get corrupted, not by failure, by success. The moment you realize you can regulate your emotions while others can't, that you can anticipate betrayal while others trust blindly, that you can shift perception while others overshare, you begin to feel elevated, different, above. That feeling, if left unchecked, becomes hubris. Hubris is more dangerous than ignorance, because ignorance can be corrected. Hubris blinds you while convincing you that you see clearly. This is where shadow integration becomes essential. And this is not some mystical concept. It is brutal self-honesty. It means acknowledging that you are capable of manipulation, deception, even cruelty, and not pretending otherwise. Most people repress that part of themselves. They say, "I would never." That's naive. Under the right pressure, almost anyone would. The Stoic strategist does not deny his darker capacities. He studies them. He understands the impulse to dominate, the satisfaction of outmaneuvering someone, the temptation to crush rather than correct. And by bringing that awareness into consciousness, he gains control over it. If you refuse to acknowledge your shadow, it will operate unconsciously. This is why some men who study Machiavelli become edgy caricatures. They adopt ruthlessness without discipline. They enjoy the idea of manipulation. They confuse cunning with maturity. They start treating every interaction like a chessboard, and eventually they push too far. They overplay. They miscalculate. On the other side, men who cling only to Stoicism sometimes repress anger so deeply that it leaks out sideways. Passive aggression, bitterness, quiet resentment. They tell themselves they are peaceful, but internally they are boiling. Integration means you allow yourself to feel aggression without being controlled by it. You allow yourself to desire influence without being addicted to domination. Here's a practical test. When someone disrespects you publicly, what happens internally? Does your chest tighten? Does your mind race with revenge fantasies? Or do you freeze and pretend it doesn't matter? Neither extreme is control. Control is feeling the surge of adrenaline, acknowledging it, then deciding intentionally how to respond based on long-term leverage. Sometimes the correct move is silence. Sometimes it is calibrated confrontation. Sometimes it is strategic patience. But it is always chosen, not impulsive. Let's examine another real-world scenario. Imagine you're leading a team. One member repeatedly underperforms. The purely Stoic reaction might be excessive patience. Everyone grows at their own pace. The purely Machiavellian reaction might be immediate termination to signal dominance. The synthesis requires assessment. First, detach emotionally. Remove irritation from the equation. Second, analyze incentive structures. Is the person underperforming due to incompetence or misaligned motivation? Third, consider second-order effects. Will firing them create fear that increases productivity, or will it destabilize morale? Once you decide, you execute cleanly. If termination is required, it is done directly, calmly. No humiliation, no anger, just clarity. That combination, emotional steadiness with decisive action, is rare, and rarity commands respect. But there's something even deeper happening. As you operate this way repeatedly, you begin to notice that most people are ruled by impulse. They chase comfort. They avoid discomfort. They seek approval. They fear rejection. And you don't. This creates distance. Conversations that once stimulated you feel shallow. Complaints feel repetitive. Drama feels predictable. You may start withdrawing socially because small talk feels meaningless. Be careful here. Isolation can distort perception. The awareness that fate, chaos, and randomness can undo even the most meticulous plan. Marcus Aurelius wrote reminders to himself. You are mortal, you are fallible, you are nothing to the universe. Those words are not self-effacement. They are ballast. They keep the mind grounded so that strategy does not become arrogance, and ruthlessness does not become cruelty. Here is the final principle, what I call the architect mindset. You design your internal and external worlds simultaneously. Internally, you build stoic fortresses, discipline, emotional resilience, empathy, clarity. Externally, you deploy Machiavellian instruments, perception management, asymmetry, leverage, controlled ruthlessness. But you do so with constant audit. Every action is measured against your principles, your long-term vision, and the safety of your human core. Without this, mastery of one side corrupts the other. You become either tyrant or monk. The synthesis keeps the scales balanced. Consider the ultimate application, influence at scale. In the boardroom, you see the competitor who manipulates colleagues. You acknowledge the frustration rising in your chest. Stoic, you step back, remove ego, and view it clinically. Then, Machiavellian, you gather information, build contingencies, create traps, neutralize threats indirectly, without drama, without exposure. You are untouchable, but not invincible. Every move is intentional, every emotion contained, every leverage point accounted for. Your power is invisible because it is grounded in internal mastery. In relationships, the same principle applies. Love without dependency, presence without neediness, care without compromise of your sovereignty. You are magnetic because your center is unshakable. You do not manipulate for ego. You influence through competence, stability, and clarity. Your partner, friends, colleagues sense it. They gravitate toward it. Not because they fear you, not because they are deceived, but because true power, the rare kind, is attractive. And yet it is ethical, it is disciplined, it is deliberate. At this level, life appears paradoxical. You are simultaneously ruthless and gentle, calculating and empathetic, detached and fully present. People will misinterpret you. Some will resent you, some will fear you, some will worship you. That is normal. Their perception is irrelevant to your internal governance. You are accountable to yourself, not the masses. You operate above the trivial judgments of the untrained mind. This is the peak of the synthesis, the Stoic prince. A man or woman who can endure any blow, anticipate any betrayal, and execute decisive action without internal corruption. They can walk among chaos without being consumed by it. They can act mercifully or harshly, strategically or compassionately, without emotional compromise. Every decision flows from a place of deliberate choice, not reactive instinct. They have mastered the ultimate paradox, to wield power fully while remaining untouchable within. Now a caution. Most will never reach this. Many stumble along the way, seduced by either side. They cling to Stoicism as a shield to hide weakness, or to Machiavellian tactics as justification for cruelty. Few integrate both. Even fewer maintain the humility required to avoid hubris. And those who do? They are legends. They shape kingdoms, companies, movements, not because they dominate through brute force, but because they govern themselves first. Your journey is the same. The tools are available. Self-discipline, strategic awareness, emotional mastery. Your task is integration. Build the internal fortress. Study the external battlefield, act intentionally, observe constantly, reflect endlessly, and always remember, mastery is not a point you reach. It is a process you live. One decision at a time, one betrayal, one success, one failure at a time. Each moment an opportunity to practice the art of the Stoic Prince. When you leave this video, do not aim to choose sides. Do not idolize the saint or the tyrant. Become the synthesis, the calm in chaos, the force in strategy, the observer in the room and the hand that moves the pieces. Master yourself first, and the world will follow. Remember, every empire begins within. Every conquest starts in the mind. Every victory is first claimed by the self. If this has resonated, commit to it. Comment "synthesis" below, and share this with someone who seeks not just survival, but dominance with integrity. Subscribe if you haven't, because this path requires guidance, discipline, and continual refinement. Step into the shadows, observe, calculate, endure, but never lose sight of the garden you protect. This is not just power. This is mastery. This is the Stoic Prince, and now it's yours to begin.